Hey everybody, it's Adam with the Pattaya News, and we are back with our weekly recap. And this week we're going to talk about a notorious incident on Soi 6 involving guards and British tourists. We're also going to talk about several other tourism breaking incidents, but the biggest thing that we're probably going to talk about that will interest many of you will be visa changes that are upcoming that were announced this week. Most of them good. But first, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow for regular updates right here from Pattaya and Chonburi. I'm Adam. Let's get started. Now, as always, we're going to begin with the events that are coming up for the next week. When you're watching this, it will be Monday. It'll be the start of June. June is Pride Month, and Pattaya goes really hard on Pride Month in particular, with two major events and a lot of smaller events. The first of the two events will take place over this upcoming weekend, specifically on the 8th, which will be the Jomtien Pride Festival. Now, Jomtien is the home of the Super Complex, which is probably the biggest gay area in Pattaya and celebrates this every year. This year, they will be celebrating not only with a parade like the past couple of years, but they will also have a major street party that will be featuring 3 concert stages, one of them right near the Dongtan police box, located right on Jomtien Beach. Now, one thing we want to let you know for this parade that's coming up this weekend. In prior years, they would march down Jomtien Beach Road. Due to construction on Jomtien Beach currently, they've changed that this year. They will be marching starting at 4 o'clock on the 8th from the Coliseum, which is basically a cabaret show located on Tepozit Road, and march all the way to Dongtan. So if you're anywhere around that area, you can see the parade. So please keep that in mind that the parade route has changed this year. And then, of course, the concert stages afterwards. Other big events coming up this week will be the Eastern Economic Corridor Festival, which it sounds like a mouthful, but it's actually pretty simple. It's food, concerts, and fun, but not just from Chonburi, but from all the eastern provinces, including Chonburi and Rayong, which will take place from the 6th until the 8th. This is taking place on Pattaya Beach in front of the Central Mall. We went last year. It was actually a lot of fun. It was previously the Pattaya Festival, and now they've kind of combined the two. So this is something that welcomes everybody and should be a lot of fun. Last, but certainly not least, will be Sunday the 9th. For those of you who are car fans, Cars on Flight takes place at Terminal 21 all day with all sorts of cars from antique, classic, sports, and luxury that you can check out for yourself. And best of all, it's free to enter, not to get the car, of course. All right, let's start. The biggest story of the week, visa changes. Now, this was announced at the cabinet meeting on Tuesday last week by the Thai Prime Minister and, of course, his cabinet, that they want to find ways to boost tourism. This comes after several polls have shown that Thailand has fallen a bit in the tourism popularity rankings around the world. And, of course, this has concerned Thai leaders. It's low season, and from a realistic standpoint, it's usually pretty quiet at this time of year. Of course, cheap plug, the week after this week will be the Soi 6 party, but we'll cover that on the next recap. And other events are coming up that help build this tourism season. But regardless, it's pretty quiet. So the PM has come up with a couple proposals that they state that are going into effect. One of them, which has already gone into effect by the time you watch this footage. And I'm going to briefly go after and go over each one of these proposals, but I'm not going to read our article in depth. I'm going to put it in the comment description so that those of you who want to read it and haven't already, because it's quite a long article, so I'm just going to go over the highlights. The first major one is that many countries are going to be expanding to 60 days instead of 30 days visa on entry. And yes, this includes, many of our readers are from the UK. It includes that. It also includes the US and includes places like Australia, Canada, France, and others. Also, the visa on arrival list has been expanded significantly as well and has gone from 19 to 31 countries and now includes places like Mexico, China, India, and others. Now, the biggest news and the most confusing news that came out of this visa announcement was the Destination Thailand visa, which some people confused it as a 5-year visa for digital nomads, students, people studying Thai martial arts, etc. And this led to a lot of confusion, speculation, and false narratives online around what this visa actually was, with some people saying, hey, I'm an influencer. I can just walk into Thailand, wave, show my YouTube channel, and stay for 5 years. No. If you really believe that, I've got some property, some beachfront, beautiful property with palm trees to sell you down in Antarctica on beautiful summers there. Anyways, no, that's not what this is. What it actually is it's valid for 5 years, a 5-year validity. Within that period, you can stay for 180 days. You have to pay 10,000 baht once you enter for that 180 days. You can renew that for an additional 180 days for another 10,000 baht. You can also change it to a different visa, but it would expire. Now, there's been a lot of confusion on whether or not you could do multiple entries, leave before the end, and it would start over. The answer to that appears to be no. There's also some hurdles with this. Number one, you have to have 500,000 baht as a guarantee. It's unclear right now, they haven't clarified this, whether or not that needs to be in a Thai bank, whether or not you can have an outside guarantor for this. That's not known, but you do need 500,000 baht. So that immediately takes out a lot of people on paycheck to paycheck and a lot of the influencers that may not have that money on hand. Also, it is looking like, the more we look into it, that you may need your employer actually to give you approval for this program. So that means that people that are doing approved remote work for a registered company, no problem. People that are freelancers working online, crypto bros, or the aforementioned influencers may not be eligible for this particular program. Now, of course, this is still a proposal. The DTV, some people said that it goes live on the 1st. That was wrong. What went live on the 1st was the changes to the period you can stay that I already mentioned, 60 days, etc. Now, the DTV will probably launch sometime fully in 2025. So again, this is in the proposal stage. It excited a lot of people with talking about it being a digital nomad visa. But once the details came out, it probably wasn't what everybody expected. But again, a lot of information is still coming out on this. It's still very preliminary. There's also very likely to be some tax implications with this particular visa, although some officials have stated that if you are truly working with a foreign company, none of that tax will apply. Whether or not, also, it does not include a work permit. So you can't get this destination Thailand visa and just start working wherever you want in Thailand. That still would require a work permit in Thailand or a work visa. Last but not least on these visa changes, we have many, many people on retirement visas here. For certain types of retirement visas, they're going to be lowering the required medical insurance, significantly actually, but that's not supposed to take effect until September. Also, they're going to be streamlining the visas overall, the visa categories from 17 to 7. Now, they haven't yet clarified exactly what these categories that will be streamlined will be. However, our guess is that many of the less used visas are ones that were more liable to abuse, such as volunteer or religious visas, may go away or be compiled into an existing visa category. So again, stay tuned, subscribe, follow, like, and we'll have further updates on that as they are released by relevant officials in the near future. Our next story, and this was the top story in Pattaya for the week and definitely the most read one on our news. And we've covered it to death, so I'm just going to kind of briefly go over it since we are recapping the top stories, is a brawl that took place at a bar on Soi 6 between a group of independent bar security guards that are contractors. They didn't work directly for the bar or any group, and a group of British customers. Now, the British customers, who were found after 5 days, or at least one of them was found, admitted that they were extremely intoxicated. It was his birthday. He'd been drinking all day. He got into a verbal altercation over his bill. Security had to be called. And at that point, after security was called, well, what happened? A brawl broke out. Now, the footage has been shared widely. We're not going to share it on here because some of the social media platforms don't like this footage for whatever reason. So what we'll show you instead is the footage of the gentleman that caused all the controversy being kicked in the head by a security guard. Now, this was after he had swung at the security guard and broken the guard's nose. But of course, he was already on the ground and beaten, and this particular kick is what drove a lot of anger online. It also drove a lot of false information, with many people claiming that he was dead, in a coma, in a hospital. We even heard claims that we were covering it up, that the whole media, the police, everybody was covering it up. Well, that wasn't true, as you've seen in the footage. What actually ended up happening is the guy went out and got drunk more. He said himself in the footage that he decided it would be a good idea. He went back to his hotel after he stood up on his own power, a little bit wobbly, but with his friends. Then he went to his hotel, cleaned up, and went back out drinking on Walking Street for the entire night. And he never went to a hospital or a doctor. He did file an official complaint. We'll see where it goes with this. Both sides have kind of apologized and don't seem to want to move forward. We've seen your comments with people saying it should be attempted murder. Whether or not that actually happens is probably a bit unlikely. The next story that I'm going to jump into, and I know this is a little bit longer than our usual weeks here, but we're going to roll with it because there's been a lot of news this week, is a Korean man that was punched by a market vendor at the Runway Market, ironically next to Soy 6. Now, this man was actually looking at exotic animals at the market and began taking pictures. Now, some of these exotic animal vendors are pretty protective of their animals, and evidently there was a 100 baht fee to take pictures of the animals. This led to a verbal argument, and eventually the Korean man, well, paid. But he didn't pay in a nice way, according to the vendor and witnesses. He threw the money at the vendor. Now, it's important to mention that the portrait of His Royal Majesty, the King, is on money. And according to the vendor, he took extreme offense to this and proceeded to kick the Korean man in the face, knocking out 3 teeth, as we'll show you here in this video footage. Now, both sides have not very happy about the incident. The vendor has admitted to it. The vendor has apologized, although he also has said he apologizes for hurting the man, but stands behind his actions due to the disrespect with the money. The Korean man, meanwhile, is hoping that he gets reimbursed for the damage and hospital bills. We'll see. Last but not least for the week that we're going to cover briefly is also a top story that took place in which a British man was at a villa party in Bang Lamung. And this British man is an expat in Sahip with a family. And he was there with his 15-year-old daughter and his wife with a variety of other people, including a Russian man. Allegedly, the Russian man began hitting on his daughter. It was originally reported as his wife, but it was actually his daughter. And the British man took offense to this and punched the Russian man in the face. One time. Only one punch. That's all it takes sometimes. Is a punch knocked the Russian man to the ground where he hit his head, and he later died from his injuries. The British man was arrested and remains in custody as of press time. Last but not least, because I always want to end on a happy note, it was National Tree Day this week, and Pattaya City officials, will throw you some default images here, planted about 90 new trees all in and around Central Klang and Sukhumvit. Many people complain there's not enough trees in Pattaya. This was a nice little touch. Till next week, guys, take care of yourselves and each other.